Hello, and welcome to the Global Luxury Real Estate Mastermind with me, your host, Michael Valdez. Today's guest, oh my God, the legend, a guy who I adore, somebody who is really out just to help other people. Brian Culhane, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thanks for having me on, Michael.
Brother, listen, you've got the legacy, you've got the history. You were like here from like when Moses parted the Red Sea. That's it. You were at the very first pre-embryonic stage of eXp, but I don't even want to get into that just yet. Tell me how you actually got started in real estate.
Yeah, it's a great question. So, and again, thanks for having me on. I mean, I'm a big fan of the show. I'm a big fan of you. I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I mean, what you've been able to accomplish in such a short period of time with this company is just mind blowing. And I know you are literally not only changing the game, but you are literally changing the world, brother. And I can just, I can't tip my cap enough to you for that.
Listen, don't let that go. It's sort of like, because you and I got to meet last month in person, and I swear to you, it was like everyone sort of says this is a family, but you and I hugged each other like we've known each other all of our lives, and we picked up from there. And it was just that close bond, which is impossible to explain to someone who hasn't sort of like gone through it. So to really be able to nurture that now, and after we met in person, what you and your family do for others is extraordinary. And thank you for that.
Well, thank you too. And us tall guys got to stick together.
I know. Right? It was so funny. Everyone that met me in person sort of said, "Oh my God, you're much taller than you look in Zoom."
Yeah, right.
Well, I got to redo my camera angles.
Well, Zoom is the ultimate equalizer, right? We're all about, 6 feet tall on Zoom. Same with the cloud office, right?
Well, I tell Dave, the avatar is the great equalizer.
Although, funny little side story, maybe I'll share it another time, but we used to be able to adjust our heights. And Jason guessing, right? So Jason used to have his avatar be 7'2". So I'd be in the room, I'd be like, "That's not fair, Jason. You are not 7'2". Get that thing down." So, my story is long, twisty, and full of.
I like long and twisty roads.
If it's I'll kind of take us back, and I'm kind of into legacy and generational and this and that. We use the term generational income a lot, so I'll take you back to my great grandfather. How about that? And
All
I'll
right.
be great. So my great-grandfather was a Chicago teacher, a great guy, just a hardworking dude. And his son, my grandfather, my dad's dad, ended up becoming a Gold Gloves boxer, Notre Dame law professor. He was second in his class, ROTC, and he had worked his way up to being the president of the Pritzker Family Holding Company.
Come on.
So by the time he was 52, he was working, which is the Hyatt, the Hyatt company, right? So he was basically the president. My dad was 25, I was 2. And then when my great grandfather passed away, my grandfather got in his car to go to the funeral, and he slipped on some ice and he crashed into a tree and passed away. I bring that up because that was kind of the beginning of where I think I was sort of destined to effectively pick up the family tree and put it back on its roots, right? I mean, he literally knocked over the proverbial family tree. Now, this is back in the 70s. My father was, he was 20 in 1969. He wasn't chasing financial freedom. He was chasing Jimi Hendrix, and he wasn't following Grant Cardone. He was following the Grateful Dead. And so, great father. I had amazing parents. They were there. How do you spell love? TIME. I had nothing but time, attention. I mean, they poured into me, but financial security did elude them. So as a young kid growing up in the North Shore of Chicago, where, very affluent neighborhood, surrounded by wealthy families, we were not part of that group. So we were on the other side of the tracks. I was kind of a blue collar kid in a white collar neighborhood. But my parents did well. They kept me in the neighborhood. People always say, we moved around a lot, and they always say, to bring this back to real estate, they always say, well, were you a military kid? Were you an Army brat? And I said, no, my parents were just renters. So parents, young parents out there, buy homes. It's much easier on your kids, right? So, so that kind of got me going. In Chicago, I was always kind of a hustler. I was, I had to wait tables, carry golf bags. I was, if it had steel toe boots and a shovel, I got the job, right? And, and I ended up playing college basketball. So I went and played around a couple different Division I's, Division II's. And then I started to kind of get introduced to sales. When I graduated college, I went to work for, my first job was at an architectural, engineering, and environmental due diligence company.
All right.
So I didn't even know what that meant, and I still really don't. It just, it doesn't fit very good on a business card. But I literally was like, it was one of those, the boss, the big corner office, he said, "Hey, here, son, here's a phone book, start selling." And I was like, what are we even selling?
Right, exactly.
And basically what is a due diligence? It's basically glorified inspection reports for commercial properties, right? So it was the phase 1 environmentals, it was the PCRs and all that stuff. So I did about a couple of years there. I did well enough to be recruited into a commercial real estate trade magazine. Again, sales job. I was selling advertising to commercial real estate developers, REITs, insurance companies, public employee unions, basically anybody that was investing in real estate, I was trying to sell them an ad and effectively here I was in Chicago, still kind of, struggling, not really making a lot of money. And effectively I was kind of like a glorified paper delivery boy, right? I would run around all the skyscrapers and hand deliver newspapers to guys and gals that were building skyscrapers. And so that got me my start. I started to get a taste for real estate.
Sure.
I remember going to these, they'd have these big, they'd take out the whole floor of the Sears Tower and they'd rent it out or whatever, right? And they'd have these big parties and they'd bring in all these ice sculpture, and all this cool stuff. And I was like, I want to do that,
exactly.
I want to be a broker. And so eventually I got sick of the cold weather. After about 27 winters, I threw all my clothes into a hefty sin sack, jumped in with a buddy. We rolled out to Arizona, and I think I was collecting unemployment. Thought I was going to maybe go take a job.
Wait. Why Arizona? Why Arizona? You just throw a dart on a map?
I always wanted to go out west. I always wanted to be in a warm weather climate. Even when I was in college, I wanted to play out in California or Arizona. My parents used to live in Tucson when I was really little, but I don't know. It just sounded warmer than Chicago, I guess.
And it is.
It's a little bit.
And it is.
Yeah. So got out here. Again, sleeping on a blow-up mattress in my buddy's spare bedroom, and said, well, what am I going to do now? And I actually met two very important people during that time. The first person I met was my future wife, Christy.
Yes.
And I met her, and that's a whole nother story. We can maybe share that on the next, at the next event we're at together. I'll share that story with you. But then I realized here, I just met this beautiful girl. I had to get serious, right? I had to start making some moves and figuring things out. And I also realized I wanted to stay in Arizona, right? I wasn't even sure. And so and then I went to real estate school. So the other person I met while I was in real estate school was Glenn Sanford.
Wow.
And,
wait, you met in real estate school?
Yeah. So, I didn't meet him in real estate school, but I was in real estate school when I met Glenn.
Got it. Okay.
So basically So again, I got my real estate license, and like most real estate agents, I didn't know what I was going to use it for, right? I got my license. Now what am I going to do, right? And so I started interviewing with some commercial real estate firms. That's where all my contacts were. Those were all my relationships. But of course, in the commercial world, and as we just had our first, as we just launched eXp Commercial now, it's a tough racket. Those guys and gals are serious players.
And it's a completely different skill set.
And not anyone can it's not like it's an entry level situation, right?
Not at all.
You got to be an earner. It's literally, you got to fabricate deals out of thin air, right?
That's right.
But I thought, well, that's cool. But I was also looking at, Craigslist ads. So one of the Craigslist ads that I was looking at was a gentleman out of the Pacific Northwest, and he was looking for a team leader to be basically run. He had built a really high performing lead generating website, and he needed a team leader. and that was Glenn Sanford. So literally, while I was in real estate school, he offered me the job to be the team leader of his top ranked website.
So you met Glenn Sanford through Craigslist.
Absolutely. That's it. Yeah.
I just got the title of this podcast.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, I mean, and again, you know, if you think about it, you're in real estate, I'm in real estate. We deal with a lot of real estate agents. I mean, I don't know what I was thinking, taking a team leader position while I was still in real estate school. I mean, I don't know how many people would even have considered that. I think
let's flip it. I don't know what Glenn was thinking hiring you while still being in real estate school. Let's flip that one.
Right. I mean, that's true, right? You know what he says? I always ask him that, or, you know, over the years I've asked him, and he said, Brian, I like that you played sports, and I like that you had no bad habits.
How did he know that? He hadn't met you.
Yeah, well, I don't know if he meant like, you know, these kind of habits, but I think he meant, like, I didn't have like 20 years of real estate.
Oh, got it. Yeah.
I had a few bad habits.
You didn't have to be untrained to be trained.
Correct. He was. He recognized that he could mold me. Right.
Right. All right. So now you met Glenn Sanford, right? Now you're working for him. He's a team leader. Is this was back at KW?
2004, 2005. Yeah.
This was at
KW.
KW.
He had just left Prudential and had started a couple teams. So Glenn went from like 0 teams to 6 teams. So he didn't just start one team and go, okay, this is good. Now I'm gonna start 2 teams. Now I'm gonna start teaching. He literally read the MRE, you know, Millionaire Real Estate Agent book, the Red Book.
Yeah.
And he goes, well, Glenn has always been like, you know, he used to say things like, if it ain't broke, break it.
Yep.
You know,
he still does say that.
Are you going big enough? Right. How big is your why? You know, all that. So he'd always kind of put his finger in your chest and be like, you're not thinking big enough. You're not thinking big enough. So he was taking his own advice. And I think he had started literally simultaneously, went from 0 teams to 6 teams in 6 cities overnight. So I was just fortunate enough to be the one Phoenix team leader.
All right, now take me through. Now we're going through, and it's now, you know, we're going through the tough times in our industry, right? With the recession and everything. And now we're sort of thinking, okay, now it's 2009. How does the idea come about? That was the birth of eXp, because you were there.
Oh yeah, front row seat. So
yeah.
So all right. So we did Keller for about 3.5 years, and we did really well. Right. Those were kind of the old golden years. You know, I remember people used to say, "List it and forget it." You know, it's going to sell automatic. You don't even have to market the property. I mean, we were smoking. We generated over $1 billion worth of leads in the first couple of years. He had the most top ranked websites of anybody. Right. In every market we were in, Glenn was like, you know, he was cracking codes. He was breaking algorithms. Right. He knew how to do all that stuff himself. And so, you know, in 2008, we left Keller and we actually started a brokerage before eXp called Buyer Tours.
Yes.
And all of our leads were very buyer centric. You know, internet lead, you know, 99% of leads on the internet are buyers. So we had a whole you know, follow-up protocol, a lot of neuro-linguistic programming that Glenn would bring to the table. So we were converting a higher volume of the buyer leads than your average agent. So that's what we kind of based our model around. And we got sick of paying, you know, all that extra money to the Red company. And unfortunately fortunately for us, unfortunately for them, profit share never delivered either, right? So we left. And we launched Buyer Tours. And again, this is 8. Now he's up to 8 markets. So again, he got 8 offices. He hired 8 brokers. He filled them up with equipment, machines, admin. So everything times 8, right? And we had teams and all the websites and all those costs. And we actually were doing well for the first 6 months of 2008. And then right around October, maybe November, you know, fell off the ledge, market crash, housing bubble burst, credit crunch. I mean, everything happened. Glenn called it the perfect storm or the white squall, right? I mean, we just got smacked in the face. Everybody lost 50% of their net worth, their home values. I mean, it was a dark, dark time for everybody. And that was really sort of the genesis of what became, you know, he basically called an emergency team meeting. He got all the leaders together here in Tempe, Arizona. He said, listen, folks, it's going to be bad, and it's going to be bad for a while. And you and me are like optimists, right? I'm a total optimist, dude. I'm like, it's going to be okay, right, Glenn? Like, we'll be back in business in a couple of weeks, right? He's like, more like years. you know, and I was like, no. So that was kind of the beginning. And so if you know Glenn, I know you do, but if anybody out there knows Glenn, you know he is a maven for not just personal improvement stuff, but like business literature, management literature. You know, I mean, the guy just reads more books. He absorbs more information than any other human on the planet, probably.
So true.
Right? And so one of the things he figured out was this idea of back then, they didn't even have the term cloud office. Like cloud was not even a thing in 2008, 2009. What they used to call it was a 3D immersive collaborative office environment.
Wow.
So again, that doesn't fit very good on a business card either.
Right?
So he found these technologies, these platforms that we could all start to meet together. Because keep in mind, again, he's in 6 or 7 cities all over the country. And Glenn realized, look, if I don't travel to this one market, they struggle. You know, he was spending tons of money on all this infrastructure and logistics of getting around the country. And he's like, there's got to be a better way to manage everybody on a daily basis than the manager having to travel, right?
Sure.
So he brought this kind of, you know, the precursor to the cloud office to the table, and we started meeting in it every day. So here, you know, because we were more loyal to Glenn than we were to whatever brokerages we were at, right? Because Glenn was the rainmaker, right? He was the visionary. And I was just, you know, I've made a career out of surrounding myself with coaches and masters, soaking up their information and then implementing it, right?
Yep.
So, or as much as I could, right?
Right.
So Glenn, you know, he's having us meet. And the other thing he really liked about, you know, the model we had left was they had some form of residual income.
Yeah.
Because again, the MRE book is all about building a 7-level business. Well, $1 million business, it's not gross $1 million in sales. You know, it's not, you know, whatever, right? It's having $1 million a year in passive income.
That's right.
So that's actually the 7th level of the MRE book, right? Glenn actually says he might be one of the first agents to ever achieve the 7th level of the book. He just had to leave that company to do it. But I digress. So yeah, so here we were meeting every day, going over stuff. There was a little twist in there where he was being courted by some other big brokerages. People were offering him stuff to come be the CTO. They were offering him stock options. And, you know, but if you know Glenn, you know, he's an ultimate manifester. He's always called himself, you know, if you even look at his Twitter handle that he's had since Twitter came out, it was always CEO Glenn. So I don't think he wanted to go be some chief technology officer. I don't think he wanted to go be, you know, he would say he learned very early on in his life he was a very terrible employee, right?
Right.
That's why he's the ultimate entrepreneur.
He wanted to build it.
He wanted to do his own thing.
Yep.
And so, you know, we obviously were like, Glenn, do your own thing. Come on, what are we, you know? And by the way, I didn't want to go be like Agent 2000, right? I was like the number 1 or 2 guy. So we all kind of said, hey, why don't we do our own thing? And, you know, this and that. And so he literally disappeared for like 4 days, and which was unheard of. You know, you could always see Glenn online. Our original cloud office, now that I think about it, was, do you remember those old Yahoo chat?
Yeah, of course I do.
So the little emojis, and you have your little friends, and you can chat with each other.
I'm older than you, Brian. I remember them.
So that's what we used to stay connected. So you could always know where Glenn was. He could always keep tabs on you. And if he was ever away, he would just put busy. Well, here he was dark. Like he wasn't even logged in for days. And I'm like, oh no, he's taking he's taking this other job. Or I'm looking at my wife. I'm like, oh no, what are we gonna do? And he literally came back. And speaking of like Moses, you mentioned Moses earlier. It was like Moses coming down from Mount Sinai with the golden tablets. And he literally calls me and he goes, Brian, I want to show you something. I go, what's that? And we used to use Google Docs, and he'd pull up a spreadsheet and he's collaborating his shit. He's walking. And by the way, Glenn is like the spreadsheet genie, right? I mean, he thinks in like 3D spreadsheets, right? So he's like,
mind maps.
Totally. And he's like, I want to walk you through this. And he starts showing me the 7-level rev share model that he created. Wow. And I was just like, this is it. And he goes, Brian, we're going to do our own thing.
Wow. And that was it.
That was it. That was the beginning.
What year? 2009.
Probably now we're getting close to 2009, towards the middle part of 2009. So by probably October of 2009, we were ready to launch, and we opened up eXp Washington State He took 10 agents out of Bellingham, 10 agents out of Seattle. And so we opened up with 20 agents in Washington State.
Jesus.
And then the next month, I took 20 agents out of the brokerage we were at, and we launched eXp Arizona.
Wow. Okay. So now you're in from like day one, pre-embryonic day one.
For sure.
So how do you, at what point do you realize, holy shit, we've got something here?
Yeah. I mean, always.
Like come on, you had to have sort of like done the.
Well, look, all right. When did my ships come in, or when did I think?
When did you really realize, wow, this is a viable company?
I was a true believer day one for Glenn. I mean, he used to actually joke around and be like,
no, but that's for Glenn. That's a different question.
Okay. When did I think the model?
Yeah. When did you realize, you know what? We've got a brand here. People are really sort of taking this seriously.
Well, all right. So I was always the guy that said, stick this out. Don't leave. This is going to work. I mean, you could ask Jason. I mean, I had some meetings with him, Dave Harbor. I mean, all these guys, everybody would get second thoughts. Is this going to work? What's going on? And I was always the guy that like, stick with it, stick with it. But even I had a couple moments of weakness and some moments of doubt. I'll share this story with you. This might help. So in 2013, when we went public, so that would be the third sort of, game changer, right? The first one being cloud officing, the second one being 7-tiered gross commission-based revenue share, and then the third one being a publicly traded company and offering agent stock, right?
Right.
So that happened in 2013, but it wasn't really to 2015 that we were giving stock awards and sort of, started to attract some major talent. I mean, we were, back then we would take anybody that would, invest $10,000 to open a state or that could fog a mirror. We were getting a lot of orphaned agents, right? I mean, the business, everybody was getting out of the business, right? Let's be honest. So we were taking whoever was sticking around and, they were just getting, jettisoned from whatever brokerage was closing at the time. And so it wasn't until about 2015 when, so I'll paint this picture. So I always use the metaphor of, the gold rush in San Francisco, right? It was 1849. Right?
Yeah.
The 49ers, right?
Yeah.
Well, there was a guy who lived on a farm called Sutter's Mill, and it was where they discovered gold on this farm, right? There's gold in their hills, right? And so, so I was the old man Sutter sitting on this model, because the model's always been the model, right? I mean, the revenue share model's always been the same, right? We haven't changed this model much at all, right? And so, but I just didn't understand like how big of an opportunity I really had in my hands until Gene and Rob showed up. Okay. When Gene and Rob showed up, now one of the guys was one of the top, recruiters in the world for the other company. And his partner was the guy who built the whole thing. Right. So these two guys came out of retirement. I ran into them at a shareholders event up in Bellingham, and it was just like lightning bolt. And you know what I realized? I said, I'm sitting on a gold mine. These guys and gals are going to come, they're going to tunnel under my feet, and they're going to take all this gold out, whether I stick my shovel in or not. So that was probably because I was the first president for 3 years. I was the chief culture officer. I was always there. We ran all the committees. We did all the education. We taught all the classes. I mean, we used to have a thing called Education Thursdays, and it was literally Glenn, Jason, me, Gabe, Kirk, John Lincoln, a few of us teaching a class. So we just, whoever could teach a class was teaching a class that day, right? So now obviously we've got 80 hours worth of live training every week.
Every single week, yeah.
Yeah, so, but back then it was just kind of like all hands on deck.
Sure.
And so I was doing a lot, helping everybody else recruit. I was doing all the weekly presentations, the explains, everything. And then these guys and gals came over and they were like, we're just going to start, taking some of this gold out of the ground.
Yeah,
you don't mind, right, Brian? You're not shoveling it. You don't care. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? Like, who just came over? Like, what? So that's kind of when I retired, or I shouldn't say retired, but I left the corporate life and I really just started focusing on, building my organization. That's amazing. It was sort of like that analogy was pretty apropos was, I was literally sitting on a gold mine. I didn't know it.
That's extraordinary. So, and that actually might be your answer to my next question, which was, what's the greatest lesson you've ever learned in your career?
Greatest lesson. So I'll take this back to when I first got hired. Glenn said to me very early on, he said, Brian, Most people are not afraid of failure. They are afraid of success.
Very true.
And when they get close to it, they self-sabotage. So basically, he taught me to get the F out of my own way.
Yeah. I love that one. I love that one because that's really true.
And, I came close lots of times, but, Glenn, he's super patient. I mean, he is cerebral and dispassionate as it comes. And, he just stuck with me and let me learn and grow. And, I was just loyal and trusting and, and I was just run through a brick wall guy. Whatever he told me to do, I did it.
And you've been very well rewarded because of that sort of thought and process. So tell me about, here's three, what would be three things you would tell somebody coming into the industry today? Just the industry, because you've been through the bad part of it.
Yeah.
You created a company from scratch. You've been through the lean years, and now we're on the other side of that. What are the three lessons that you would tell somebody?
One, find people that are doing it at the high level that you can pattern, mimic, and sort of copy. I don't like to say copy, but pattern and mimic yourself after. Seek out the best and get in the same room with them. Okay. Number two, though, is you got to implement what you learn from them. Because being around successful people is great, but if you don't actually put that stuff into place. And number three is do something. I'll use a better little anecdote. I had one of my favorite coaches over the years is a gentleman named John Foltz. He's like a local legend here in Arizona. He shared this lesson with me very early in my career. He said, his dad was an engineer, wanted him to go into engineering school. He said he was going to go out to Arizona and become a real estate agent. He might as well told his dad he was going to be an axe murderer, right? And so his dad doesn't say anything until he's packing his car, getting ready to drive. He also grew up in Chicago, so he's getting ready to drive out to Arizona. His dad comes down and he goes, "Son, I just have one bit of advice for you. If you do something and it works, keep doing it. If you do something and it doesn't work, stop doing it. The only way to fail is to do nothing."
Wow. That's actually really powerful. I like that.
It's so simple too. I mean,
so
think about, but why is that important to real estate? Think about how many people in real estate get ready to get ready, or they need more training or more accreditation or more letters after their name, or they need more classes, or someone needs to show me what to do before I do anything. And it's like,
just go do it.
Go do it. If you want to learn how to swing a golf club, pick one up.
Yeah, I love it. That's actually awesome. All right. So listen, this whole, you said you were the culture officer too in the beginning.
I was.
One of the most beautiful things that I love about eXp is really the culture. Yeah. And it is that sense of family. And, and now that we're sort of doing this on such a global scale, right? It was like, I know that you were there in Cabo, and I did it at the shareholders speech really recently. It's the idea that this has all become much larger than any of us. It is now a movement that happens on its own, right? Yeah. And so we're just responsible for just helping as many people as possible. And one of the core values is philanthropy in this organization. And it's because a lot of this, Glenn's made a lot of millionaires in this organization. And so because of that, there's also a huge amount of responsibility of giving back. Yes. And I know that you and your whole entire family have been amazing with that. Share with me a little bit about those efforts.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the company is doing so many amazing things. I mean, we're building sustainable homes in third world countries and environmentally stricken countries. And I mean, they're just doing some really awesome stuff. We have all kinds of initiatives, local, global, regional. Yeah. On a personal level, something that's really important to us is I'm a big fan of getting into real estate. This was something that was never taught to me in high school. It's not a career path they talk about in college. It's almost like nobody talks about getting into real estate, right? It's almost like you fall into it, or someone talks you into it, but they never teach it or discuss it in sort of traditional academia. And so even just getting your license, yeah, sure, come to eXp, do all that, but even just having your license to do your own transactions in your own life, right, is going to be so valuable.
Yeah.
So I started a thing called the Culhane Excellence Academy. For the last 3 years, my wife and I have been giving out scholarships to get people into real estate school. So I think we've given out over 50 scholarships, and I'm not raising money yet. I'm not doing charity events to raise money. This is out of our own pocket. And so we have successfully put a number of people into the real estate game. And it's just amazing to me. And I'm talking like the nail tech at the spa, the Uber driver. Yesterday alone, I had lunch with a guy who was a finance director for a car dealership. So I was meeting with him. I recruited the waitress and then the valet guy on my way out, and I gave all 3 of them scholarships, and they all were all in. I mean, within like 2 seconds, they were like, "Oh my God!" I go, "Have you ever thought of real estate?" They go, "I've never thought of it, but I should." Right?
Yeah.
And so, to me, that's just like, yes, I like helping, the Cardones of the world and the Tarek Al-Mousas of the world and the Michael Valdez's of the world, but I much, just from a, where do you see your greatest impact? Where does it, you get the most meaning and the most satisfaction in what I do? It's being able to help cultivate a success story in someone who really, is at the very, very beginning, right?
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing.
Thank
so
you.
Define success for me now.
Sure. Yes. Yeah. Great question. Well, again, I mean, there's the sort of cliche, success is what it means to you. But I would say, honestly, success is, I can use one word. It's freedom.
Yes.
Having freedom, financial freedom, time freedom, pain freedom. We don't talk about, I mean, people do, but, I do, but, this sort of like being free from pain, like pain of, mental pain and physical pain and emotional pain and spiritual pain. But really that's where also we do a lot of work too. Because as a as a trainer, as a coach, as a recruiter, my whole career, a team leader, something I realized a few years ago was I was doing it wrong. And I was kind of like, you need to grind harder. You need to wake up. You need to get going, man. You're not pushing hard enough. And if you ask me, like, what is the essence of sales in any industry? I would say it's, you're really asking somebody to go out and make friends with strangers.
That's right.
And if, I've had some health issues. I broke my hip in 2011. And if it wasn't for eXp and the revenue share, by the way, I wouldn't even be still in the business. So broke my hip, couldn't walk for 9 months. Caused all kinds of problems with me and my health and my sort of a cascading health crisis. I was on and off opioids for 5 years that wrecked my hormones and my endocrine systems. And so as I've been digging out and going down this biohacking, sort of rabbit hole that I've gone down, by the way, I'm down 75 pounds. I'm running Spartan races, so I'm doing okay.
Amazing.
But one of the things I realized was a lot of this stuff's chemical. So for example, and it's hardwired. So for example, like we are hardwired as humans to fear strangers. Okay. It's a biological safety mechanism. Your body you get a cortisol spike, you get all kinds of chemicals start flushing through your body. Look no further than being on an elevator with 10 strangers. Yeah. Right. You just time stands still and you're pushing the button and you're like, what is this thing gonna, you're in there for 30 seconds, but you feel like it was, an hour. Right. Yeah. And so that's biological. Well, here I am asking my sales team to go out and make 20 new friends today. Right. Hey, Michael, just go knock on 20 doors. Come on. What's wrong with you? And you're getting there going like, you're like, Brian, I don't even want to get out of bed. Like, I don't even want to look myself in the mirror. Like, I hate the way I look. I hate the way I feel. Like, I don't even, I don't have that kind of energy. So I've really flipped my whole coaching program around where now I really go deep on helping people, first of all, get their mindset right, start to, take on sort of that law of attraction and, mental hygiene stuff and just, speaking their words into existence, getting clear on their purpose, their mission. And then we work on their energy levels. So maybe we'll have you jump in some ice water. Maybe we'll have you run barefoot through the desert, or maybe
you're doing that little sort of cold plunge thing, aren't you?
Definitely doing the cold plunge thing, and it saved my life. Wow. It's improved the quality of my life. It's allowed me to elevate my vibration levels, and so So to me, if you were to ask me, what's the one thing everyone should work on? It's you need to work on yourself.
Yes. It's so true.
Yeah. Work on yourself and everything else will take care of itself.
It's so true. You know, it's sort of like, so talk to me about motivation. What motivates you now, right? It's sort of like, so, you know, we've gotten to a point now where you were there in the very beginning and this has been some ride. So I'm assuming money's not an issue right now. So tell me what motivates you.
Yeah, well, it's the drive. You know, I guess it's hardwired, right? You know, I'll take it to we were both at the 10X Growth Con in Miami together, right? And I was sort of, you know, I was being a little bee, right? I was starting to check out. I was starting to say things like, well, I don't want to work, you know, I don't want to make so many calls and my throat hurts and I'm sick of talking all the time and I don't need this. I got $100 million. What do I need to do that for, right? And then I'm in GrowthCon and it was like one speaker after the next.
Yes.
And, you know, Glenn's working on his third billion and this and that. And, you know, and I'm like, and there's like, you know, 60 and 70-year-old like billionaires up on stage going, I'm starting a new company and I'm running a 100-mile ultra marathon. And I'm sitting in the front row like, oh my God, I'm being the biggest wimp. You know, I'm totally checking out. You know, I'm 46 and I'm acting like I'm 96.
Yeah.
Right. And so I made a commitment. I looked at my wife. I said, you know, I got to get back all in. I'm letting everybody down. I mean, it was kind of like a replay of 2015 where, you know, Rob was saying, you're holding everybody back because if you can't do it, nobody can.
Right.
And so I realized I needed to continue to elevate and really in order to allow my agents to be able to point to me and go, that's the rock in my corner.
Yes.
Right? So I'm now, for me being successful isn't enough. It's how can I create enough success throughout my network? Because if I'm the only one successful, or if you and I are the only guys that are making it, you know, then this model doesn't work.
That's right. That's right. And that's the whole core of this. It's the idea that you're supposed to share this with others. You know, that's what's like my passion now. When I saw that this worked, and I've only been here a year, when I saw that this worked and I saw every time that I come up, it was the story you just shared about your hip operation. It was the story that somebody, every single time I'm with Glenn or Jason or Jeff, and anytime that there's an event where there's eXp agents around, and inevitably somebody will come up and sort of say, you changed my life to one of these three guys. And so that is something that you can't put on a P&L. That's something that you cannot put on a financial statement. That is so powerful where you actually change someone's life.
Yeah. You know, I used to say this as a kid or, you know, a young adult, you know, people would always say, and I don't know where I picked this up from, but I just started saying this all the time. I'd say, you know, if you could be at your funeral and go through everybody in there and say, you know, is your life better off for having known Brian Culhane or Michael Valdez or if you hadn't met him? You know, I would like to have everybody at my funeral say my life was somehow improved for having met that guy.
Yeah. That's a great barometer.
Yeah.
That's a great barometer.
Yeah.
I've got one final question for you. In your book of life, what's this chapter called?
This is called the Stepping Out of the Cave.
All right.
Because, you know, I've got my Plato complete works back here, right? So Plato had the allegory of caves, okay? So the allegory of caves was this metaphor of how, you know, you're sort of born in this dark, ignorant kind of cave. And, you know, everything you know is cave life, right? And it's dim lights and it's, you know, crunchy, dirty, gross, you know, whatever, and, you know, moldy water and moldy bread. And then one guy escapes and he steps out and he sees the light and smells fresh air and the colors. And then, of course, what does he try and do? He tries to run down to the cave and tell all his friends, time to come out with me. And, of course, what do they think?
He's crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy. No. And then, as a matter of fact, they don't even think you're crazy. They try and keep you back in. We can't let you hurt yourself. They keep you in the cave. So sort of that, it's so nice that I finally stepped out of the cave and I've literally, you know, I mean, I have a business mentor named David Bernstein. He's a friend of ours. and he's been helping me throughout the years. And he had a funny line. He said, Brian, after 40 years of digging ditches, you're an overnight success.
That is fantastic. Brian, I got to tell you, my friend, you and I are new friends, but I feel as though I've known you all my life, and you are one of the most generous souls that I've ever met. And it is something where from the beginning, your entire family, that trip to Miami with your wife and your brother, and it was just family. And you just included everyone into it. And so I felt like a Culhane. So,
well, you are a brother for me, dude, brother from another mother. And, and that is also a testament to this model because, I mean, if you're not a good person, if you don't come from a place of service and a place of, helping others, then, you're just not going to make it here.
so true. It's so true.
So the fact that you're in the position you're at, right there, that says everything about me because there's no way Glenn, Jason, all these guys that I've been working with for 15 years and, all these people, these amazing people that have come into our orbit, there's no way a guy like you gets to where you're at if you're not like awesome.
Well, listen, it's sort of like this has been an incredible, incredible experience. And thank you for who you are and what you do in the world. And it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much, my brother.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, all of you, for listening. This has been the Global Luxury Real Estate Mastermind with me, your host, Michael Valdez.